What is the one thing keeping us from our Christ consciousness? It is the most persistent and destructive habit ever assimilated into nature and mankind. That is negative thinking. To know this would to be able to understand where the center of Christ consciousness is, and that is the center of creation. To know this is to understand the first universal hermetic principle, the law of mentalism, that all is the mind, the universe is mental. To fully understand the first universal law is to understand that the first cause and the first mover of anything in the entire universe first exists on the mental plane. Everything brought into creation in this entire universe was first created on the plane of a mind, of consciousness. Mind, therefore, is the mighty mover. Mind is the mighty mover. Consciousness is the only thing that has anything, does anything, is anything, moves anything, or frankly, has anything. Because first you have to have the thought in your mind in order to create something. All form in existence proceeds from thought, and thought is the first cause in all things. So, what does this mean to you in understanding that negative thinking is the one thing that's keeping us back from our Christ consciousness? How do you begin to change? Well, here are 3 truths that I want to share with you over the 10 years that I've been doing this work. And I'm just here to share with you my experience through knowing and understanding these principles. The first thing that we have to understand is there is no personal responsibility that we have except to our own thought. That you are responsible for your own thoughts and your beliefs, and that you have to deliberately choose and guard your thoughts. It has to be an act of deliberate intention. Because the law of attraction, like attracts like, is the law of choosing thoughts. Like whatever thoughts you choose to think, we will think, and whatever we choose to think becomes real in our lives and manifested as a physical reality. As a man thinks, so is he. Our accepted thoughts that we think and we accept becomes manifest in our physical world. It becomes a tangible thing. And so, in understanding that ask and it shall be given unto you, God answers in the physical reality what you see and accept in your mind, because after you conceive and accept it in your mind, gestation happens. There is birth. We know this through the law of gender, that it births into your reality. The second thing that we must do, from my 10 years of experience, is trust. We have to trust and put our trust and faith and to the wisdom of the omnipotent and all-knowing mind of God. We tend to be in this like, I have to do mentality because we're materialistic. Being a materialist in a materialistic society, we look at everything in the material senses, as in, like, we have to find a job, we have to get a better job, we have to make more money, we have to find love. And so we sense our inadequacies and we seek out to beat them in this world in the physical way. And so by worrying and thinking about and focusing on our problems, it makes us more frantic because we don't have enough, and we're rushing and we're hurrying and we're going back and forth. And by doing this is the worst thing that we could do. And it's also the most difficult thing to do, is to let go and to let God, and to leave everything into the very qualified hands of God. But we have to remind ourselves, like, certain things we just don't always know how to do. I personally don't know how to fly a plane, so I'm not gonna go in the middle of a flight and try to tell the captain to let me drive, let me fly the plane, or to go left or to go right. But for some reason, when it comes to certain destinations that we're trying to get to, we feel like we have to do it. Like we want to control the outcome, or we have to arrive at a certain place, at a certain time, in a certain step, in a certain way. And oftentimes doing this results in disaster because we end up losing trust in a more qualified, capable creation that we're directly connected to and are a part from, that we are a part of. When we say go here, go there, or in the middle of flight, we change our minds and we want to go in another direction, or we divert our direction, that causes confusion and changes the command in the middle of flight. And oftentimes it takes us longer to get to our destination than what it could have. And so trust is very important, because it's trusting in God's timing, and trusting in that in some destinations we may not be capable of getting there by our physical vehicle that we have. So we have to work and trust in another realm and another part of us that we're directly connected to. And a part of that, and thinking, when we have to think, oh, it has to be in a certain way or time and control, we have to understand that it doesn't have to be perfect, that God meets us exactly where we are. I think about where certain successful people had started, and you know how they may have started in their kitchen, or they start KFC started in his kitchen, Amazon started in a garage. Like, there are so many stories of understanding that you can start and begin exactly where you are. It doesn't have to be, and that happens within its own timing. And it reminds me of oftentimes when we do try to say it has to be in a certain way, space, place, and time. When we even speak that over ourselves, our subconscious mind, remember, it doesn't distinguish between good, bad, or timing. When we say it has to be in a certain way, then it just says, okay, it has to be in this way then, and that we will experience that. And even in things that we may think are good for us, I remember I was getting something to eat, and there was a lady in a restaurant, and she was sharing with her friends for that moment as I was getting some salsa. Oh, after the kids get older, we save this amount of money, then we'll be able to start this business and achieve our dreams and do this. And they said, well, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. We've been doing this too. And I thought, in terms of a level of consciousness, how I too had set things for myself, and I end up experiencing that. And so we have to understand that sometimes can even hinder, because we don't always have to know the how when we're setting these plans. Our main focus is to remain focused on the destination that we want to get, and enjoying the journey, and trusting that creation is already finished. that a seed has everything that it needs, that this little seed has the leaves, the vine, the trunk, the fruit, and the fruit has all of the seeds. A seed has everything that it needs. Creation is already finished. So we have to trust that everything is going to happen in its own timing. Our own job is to nurture and water and trust that it is going to happen, and something else is in control of allowing it to grow. But first, the roots must happen. So instead of focusing on what we don't have, maybe we should focus on being prepared. Help me get prepared. Help my roots become deep to receive all of it is, to make sure, let me make sure that I'm ready. Because creation is already finished, because of we are created and fully equipped because of the creator who created it. All things in the indwelling God, and God is dwelling in all things. So sometimes we really have to do is trust. There was a commercial when I was growing up. It was like, set it and forget it. Like, to set a timer on something and to really trust that it is going to happen, that you just know that it's going to grow. It's going to be what it is going to be. You don't have to worry about it. You could just sit back and relax and be a passenger of the plane. And don't even fall asleep. Do what you need to do to get ready to arrive to your destination. There are no limitations for God. God denies us nothing. We get exactly what we ask for. Our subconscious mind gives us exactly what we ask for. And this reminds me of the story of Jacob and Esau in the Bible. And a lot of people take the Bible literally, but if y'all know me, right, I'm going to understand that the Bible are basic instructions for life, and the Bible is a manual of the mind. So the story of Jacob and Esau, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is a story where there was a blind father who wanted to bless his son, and he wanted to bless his favorite son, who happened to be hairy, and his other son was hairless. So because he was blind, in order to identify his sons, he would touch and feel them to identify who was Jacob and who was Esau. So their mother, obviously being a mother and loving, wanted both of her children to be blessed. So she told her son, she created a coat that was hairy and told her son to put the coat on that was hairless. So he goes to his father, and his father goes, Are you my beloved son? First he asked him, Are you him? And he says, Yes, I am him. So he says, Come closer so that I may feel you. And he feels him with the coat on, and he blesses him because he has on the coat. And a lot of people think that it was deceitful because they take a literal interpretation of what happened with these people, and they're taking advantage of this blind father. But if we understand that the Father is our super conscious God, if we would say that, and our subconscious mind is directly connected to that, and if we say and agree to a thought, if we say and agree to it based on a feeling, how we feel after we say who we say we are, then we get the blessing. So the feeling gets the blessing. And the mother in this story is our emotion, our feminine aspect, in getting us ready and prepared to have the feeling. Because the subconscious is no respecter of person. God is no respecter of person, color, or creed. It is blind. It gets, the only way that it communicates through energy is by feeling. And no one can get to the Father except through me. No one can get to your thoughts except through you. No one can get through your feelings except through you. So you have to feel, you have to put on the feeling in order to get the blessing. And this also explains another universal principle, that the nature of our true being will work for us exactly on earth as it does in heaven, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, on earth as it so is in heaven. This is why we have to develop the habit of good, because we've already developed the habit of bad, and we know what the bad is like, and we ain't trying to experience that no more. The third thing that we have to do is deliberately guard our thoughts to what they say is to bring them into the obedience of our Christ consciousness, to consciously choose thoughts that are aligned with what it is that you desire within that space. To know and to understand is to know that you observe your thoughts and that you decide and you choose deliberately, whether you're aware of it or not. So in developing our awareness, we have to develop an awareness, and we also have to deliberately know that we are choosing every single time we take upon a thought, and we know that we are choosing by the way that it makes us feel. Because it's so idiotic to hope for the best and to think for the worst. It really is, because if we truly wanted it, what we want, what we hope for, and hopefully we're not hoping, because hoping is wishing, right? We want to desire something and know that it is on its way. And when we know that it's on its way, we don't think otherwise. So when it comes to self-talk, that condemning, that harsh, that abusive language that we have, know that if we put that out there, that we're going to get exactly back that. And the other part of that is that what scripture also says, that there is no condemnation for those that are in their Christ consciousness. So it's important to know that if you are condemning that part of yourself, because your Christ consciousness, that aspect of you, you're directly connected to source, nothing can separate you from that, that you're also condemning it. It is right there with you doing that thing. So you don't want to continue to experience that, which is why Jesus said, make friends with your adversaries quickly. Take heed to that. And even if it is something that is in opposition, or it really did happen, you can accept that it happened, accept the feeling, take the lesson and the blessing, and move on. Because we have no chance of creating good if we are constantly creating evil with our thoughts. It will manifest in our lives. And especially when it comes to the guilt or the shoulda, coulda, woulda, sometimes like I even get in this space where there's certain things in my life where I'm like, okay, what if I would have chosen a different path? Or what if I wouldn't have met this person? Then how could, and it's like at this point, I have to fully understand that whatever path I travel towards, it doesn't matter, because I've traveled toward my goal, and whatever path I've traveled towards is the right path. It's led me exactly to the person that I am, with the perspective and the knowledge and the wisdom and the application to this point within my realization. And I'm grateful for that. And we have to be deliberate when we are choosing, because staying stuck in the past is not going to get us any further ahead than what it is that we're trying to go. We're trying to go in a direction that is forward. And oftentimes we face difficulties. Yes, oftentimes we do. We will have trials and tribulations. That's a known fact. But we have the ability to conquer them. Fear not. And oftentimes it's easy to understand that when we choose a direction, the easiest path there is a straight line. The easiest path to hike up this place is a straight line up the mountain. But I might not know on the way up, there might be critters and snakes that I have to dodge and look out for, or rocks that I have to climb over, or a tree that has fallen that I have to decide if I'm going to either climb over it or try to go around it. And maybe I tried to climb over it and it's rotten and I fall through. Like, am I going to stop in the middle of that and say that I'm not going to get to my destination? No, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to develop everything that I need on the way. And I'm going to trust that I'm going to get there. And it's so important that we're deliberate with that, and that we have to understand that that path is not all the path that we have is always for our good, and within our deliberate intention of knowing that it is strengthening us rather than looking at it as an obstacle or something that we don't want to have, that we're developing the strength for doing that. But it all has to come from within, because when we're in a car, right? Like, we are not going to get out of the car. If we're trying to steer the car, we're going to steer it from the inside. We're not going to get out of the car and try to turn the tires while the car is moving. Or if we're trying to stop the car, we're not going to get out of a 70 miles per hour moving car and get in front of it and try to stop it. No, we're going to try to stop it from the inside. So we have to deliberately choose among whatever it is within our own strength and our deliberate desire, intentionally, with compassion. And for those that are really about their own way, truth, and life, for 30 days, I'm inviting everyone that is listening to this video, regardless of the time and the space that it is, we're going to do a 30-day mental detox to choose to only think what we desire, what we want to happen. And don't say, before I even say it, for 30 days, don't say you don't have time, or it's not going to work, or that's too long. Because that attitude and way of thinking already destroys the goal before you've already begun. And if you feel like you don't have the ability to control your thoughts for 30 days, I would encourage and implore you to begin to learn how to become aware of your thoughts for 30 days. At least try that first part of it. Or if you can't do 30, do as many as you feel that you can until you can do 30. But for this time, I'm going to provide a mental log worksheet that allows you to log necessarily with a check mark, because you don't have to write what the thought is, but you could write what the thing is that you're thinking about, how it's making you feel, negative or positive, and the time of day for every day of the week. And this will allow you to begin to see the pattern, the times of day, and to further analyze it so that you can begin to become more aware of how you're placing your energy, because we know where attention goes, energy flows. So you can understand how your thoughts are deliberately making you feel, so that you begin to develop an awareness behind them. And once you develop an awareness behind them, you can begin to decide how it is that you want to feel by doing the next part of this 30-day challenge. We're going to stop focusing on the problem, and we're going to focus on the possibilities. So for 30 days, we are going to make sure that we are not hearing, seeing, or speaking no evil. And some of us, this might be a little challenging, because I didn't say it was going to be easy. Some of this may be challenging because we're going to have to really monitor our intake of what we're watching and what we're listening to, especially when it comes to music. because music has the ability to bypass the intellect and evoke the senses. So certain music can put you in an emotion that you don't necessarily want to be in. So you are going to have to be really deliberate and intentional with what it is that you are allowing yourself to listen to see, and to speak. Because all of this evokes your feelings, and we understand from the story of Jacob that the feeling gets the blessing. So for 30 days, we are not going to accept a single negative thought or dwell in a single negative premise. No premise, conclusions, because we be jumping to conclusions. You know that. We coming up with these premises and then we just go here and then we're down this rabbit hole of negative thinking. So these internal arguments that we have with ourselves, this habit that we've developed, we're going to begin to stop the premise before it becomes a conclusion. This doesn't mean that negative thoughts aren't going to happen. In fact, they probably will come up more than ever. This just means that you're going to refuse to accept them or to become aware of them and to tell yourself that you don't have to accept them, that you're going to give yourself permission not to accept them. We're not going to resist them. We're going to tell ourselves that we're going to become aware that we're doing it. And then we're going to allow ourselves to say, number one, I no longer want to feel this, and what it is that I could particularly choose to feel instead of this. What is the possibility instead of the problem and that I could feel instead of this? One of the things that we have to do when it comes to a problem is we have to understand that oftentimes it is a problem of the past or a problem of the future that we're trying to predict negatively into our future. So we have to understand that that has no real basis, that it has no truth, that it's delusional, and that it has no foundation for us in this particular moment of what we want. It has no root, and especially of those particular ghosts of the past, those people or those situations that we tend to hold on to. Because the truth is if we were back in that situation or back with that person, the us that is now, we wouldn't even want that situation. So we have to learn how to redirect ourselves and let ourselves know that, hey, I'm thinking about something back then. I wouldn't even want that now. That situation is not here. It's not real in this moment. It's just a matter of learning how to redirect our thoughts after we become aware of it. And we have to do this with compassion. We have to give ourselves permission. We have to develop an awareness and observation through, number one, meditation. So within this time for 30 days, you have to understand that in the kingdom of heaven, that all things are added unto you, that God denies us nothing once we seek that. So when we keep seeking, asking, knocking, it shall be given. And where is the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is a center of consciousness. To know it, all things will be added unto you. And just imagine how beautiful this kingdom and this universe is that you have within the consciousness of your own mind. Do you look at you and your ability to go within with the same fascination that you do with helping people sometimes, or even, getting into these relationships, how we be looking at our partners with the same fascination and study and showing up for our partners in this way? Do we show up for ourselves in the way that we show up for others and for our partners? Can you be a sucker for yourself the way that you a sucker for love? Can you be a sucker for your own love? This is the beauty and the ecstasy of working with these laws. It is understanding that it's a process. It's a development, a strengthening process that is built, and it takes time, and it requires patience. It requires diligence, faith, and compassionate persistence. Consistence. You have to be consistent and persistent. This is why we are doing this conditioning for 30 days, but it goes past 30 days. It really does. And within this 30-day time, because we're developing a muscle, a mental muscle that we have already developed and conditioned in such a horrible way, is that it's going to be painful. There's going to be fatigue, but we can't grow weary of that. We can't grow weary and knowing, because we know that there is a greater force. We have to trust, going back to trust, right? That there is a greater force within you that is equipped and has everything that it needs to grow within it. And so that you get your strength, and knowing that there's joy within that, and knowing that it works, that it's just going to work. Just trust that all you got to do is sit back and be a passenger. You don't have to hope or try to control or to try to fix it. Hope is like a pessimist trying to think optimistically, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you actually have to feel and be and comfortable within that space, and trusting and knowing. And you do this every day. You do this every day. And so you do this every day by practicing over this time, and you raise an octave, you raise a part of your frequency every day in order to get to the highest level, by appreciating the things that you already have, because we understand that God meets us exactly where we are. So wherever we are, we can start. You can start in your garage. You can start wherever. It doesn't have to be. You could just start. You could trust and start that you are going to be prepared and to quit. So you can start to nourish and water your mind within you first, and appreciate that. Begin to learn to shift your consciousness, because life and death are in the power of the tongue. So you could speak life into yourself, or you could speak death into yourself. You know the saying, like, put your money where your mouth is? Well, your money really is where your mouth is. To be able to speak blessings and cursings over yourself, every time you speak negatively over yourself, you are cursing yourself. They say, like, you really are a conjurer, because you're conjuring up emotions, and you are creating that within your physical reality. And you're constantly doing this. We are already doing this. We have over 70,000 thoughts per day, according to neuroscience. And so the thoughts that you are choosing and you are accepting that you are thinking are giving you your physical reality. So we're already doing it anyway. We already should just armor up, stay, because the battlefield truly is in the mind. The spiritual warfare is taking place on the mental battleground. So we must put on the helmet of salvation. And what is that? Ephesians. The helmet of salvation is the protection in our fortified mind, a mind that has protection against negative thoughts, against doubt, against worry. It is an alignment with the higher power on that mountaintop. The breastplate of the righteous is right thinking, protection of your heart and mind through right thinking, shielding it from attacks by choosing those right thoughts. The sword is really the word, or the spirit, which is the word of truth. And truth cuts through lies. Every time that you combat, every time that you redirect, which is why redirection is key. Every time you redirect that thought with the truth, you immediately are tearing down that place that you no longer want to be in, that you are slowly getting out of that space. and the girt or the belt of truth is to surround yourself in truth. It's about being prepared with the tools. And your girl got hella tools. I got hella tools over the past 10 years with all the things that I've studied, and I am here to share them with you. So please hit me up for the mental log worksheet and check in with me once a week and within this 30-day process, and let me know how you're doing. I'm here to share with you some tools and suggestions. I'm going to get into some ways, but that is only going to be a few of them. So please feel free to reach out to me. But after you put on that belt, that girdle of truth, what is it? What is the next part of that? It says praying always without ceasing, because we are always communicating to ourselves through the principle of correspondence. So we are always praying without ceasing. We have 70,000 thoughts per day. It's happening even when we're sleeping. Our subconscious mind we're constantly moving, whether we remember our dreams or not. It's constantly vibrating and moving. Our mind never stops. With supplication and in spirit. Supplication means to plead humbly, to be humble, to have an earnest and a sincere request, to make sure that we are doing it with intention and not out of ego. It is clear and it has focused intention. So here are some additional tools with you to overcome some obstacles that may come up during this 30-day process. While you're trying to choose positive thoughts, you may encounter situations where you are not wanting to go to the job, right? You're begrudged, or you're not wanting to deal with a certain particular thing that is going on with work. You have to change your perspective and think about the things that you might appreciate about what that job has given to you, what it has taught you, how it's able to provide for you in that moment. That there was one point where you wish that you had that particular job, and appreciate it in the moment while you are allowing another ideal or to appreciate the inspiration that you have to know that it's time to move on. But don't stay in that feeling of like, oh, here, I gotta go. I gotta do this again. I gotta get up and go. We don't want to have that energy. That's not choosing the thought that's going to serve us. Or let's say you're dealing with a difficult person and you don't want to have to deal with this person, or wherever this person is, right? You may encounter a stranger, someone that you may know. Understand in that moment, this person is teaching you how to communicate and deal with that aspect of yourself. More importantly, it's also teaching you how things show up. And so you have to look at it from a place of observation and know that if you engage with that you're deciding to potentially take on the energy of that. So it's teaching you what happens when you engage with an energy, whether it's a mental energy of someone else coming at you externally, or however, if it comes from you internally. Whatever it is, it's showing you an aspect, because there's nothing new under the sun. You're going to have to deal with all things. If you're dealing with regret, pain, bitterness, it's a whole bundle of like, remind yourself that the path that you are on is perfect, that it has given you the knowledge, the tools, and the understanding to get you to the place that you are here today. If it's regret about something, or if you're bitter about something, understand that is dead and gone, like that you have to move on from that is a ghost of the past, that you're going to let that be to a creator that you've learned less from than that. You don't have to continue to hold on to that. It's a redirection and reminder if you feel that in that moment. If that feeling has really, really kind of taken over from you, because oftentimes when we get into these emotions, right, those emotions hijack our prefrontal cortex, and we don't have the ability to really rationalize and think clearly in moments of high emotion. I've been there. One thing that helps me is to be able to take a step back and bring the awareness to my senses. Like, I could be thinking a thing, but I have the ability to still see out my eyes. So what is it that I see in front of me? I have to kind of go into the awareness of my senses, that I see whatever, a blue sky. Okay, what do I smell? So I have to bring myself back, literally back. It's like an outer body experience. Sometimes we're acting off of emotion. So I have to bring myself back to my body by tapping into my senses. If you're dealing with lack or disparity, ask yourself in that moment, what kind of consciousness am I in? And am I in a consciousness of abundance? Am I in a consciousness of scarcity or despair? Like, is this the consciousness that I want to be in? And remind yourself of the promises that you came to have life in abundance and that you are abundant. Even if you don't feel abundant in that moment, remind yourself of that spiritual truth. Even though that there are only 66 books in the Bible, there are still over 6,000 promises that we can use to remind ourselves of the truth it is that we are promised and given to as an heir, as understanding all these things that once we get to the kingdom will be added unto you. So you have the keys to the kingdom by reminding yourself of these truths. And it's not going to be easy. I didn't say that it is. Nothing worth having ever comes easy, right? What has come easy is what we don't want to have anymore. What has come easy is the programming and the things that we're subject to. And now we are, unfortunately, now we have to learn how to shield and block ourselves from things that are on social media and the news and in the physical world of what is in front of us and what we see in our senses. We have to understand that when it comes to our senses, that once was a thought, that's where it all began. So in order to move wherever we are at in our physical senses, that we first must start. And to get there, we have to move. The mind is the mighty mover. The kingdom of heaven is within. We have to get to ourselves. We have to go within our mind. Until we become a master of our thinking, you will never become a master of your fate. Don't let anything stand in the way between getting you to where you got to go. Because I don't know about reincarnation. I don't know about second lives or anything like that. But one thing that I do know is that our consciousness never dies. It is infinite. We are energy never dies. It is infinite. So it is my job to take care of it, to make sure that I do what I need to do to get to where I got to get to. However long that takes, whatever that looks like. But I know in order to start to get there, I have to go through my own consciousness. Two other things that I want to share with you during this process is how you wake up in the morning and how you go to bed. When you wake up in the morning, it is so important to spend time with yourself in meditation. This is the only way that you are going to hear and to be still and to know how to tap into your mind. So if you're not familiar with meditation, I would start slow. I would start with 5 minutes and gradually 10, 15, 20. When I started in 2017, I was doing 10 minutes in the morning. Now I'm at an hour in the morning. And it's something that is a necessity that I have to do in order to, it's like, for me, it's like getting into the driver's seat. Before you go to bed, before you become unconscious, before that consciousness becomes unconscious and you are now in the superconscious realm being directly connected to the ethers, make sure you go to bed, whatever you do before you go to bed, but make sure you go to bed, whatever you're thinking about, put it on your mental shelf. Give yourself permission to say that it'll be handled in the morning, or if you have a question, don't ponder it, write it down and think it to yourself and trust and know that it will be answered. Try to go to bed imagining and feeling and being in a space that you already desire. If you feel like you want to go to bed thinking that you're in the house that you want to be in, and whatever your life is, go to bed from that imaginative space. Use your imagination and play pretend from that space before you go to bed. To know thyself is to know the truth of you, and the truth shall set you free. Till next time, y'all, be well. Peace out.